and even parts of Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, right, where we have a good branded presence. So that is the journey for Glenmark Pharma. As regards cost, right, you know, while, as I mentioned, the US generics business, which really needs the vertical integration to compete in terms of cost structure, right? We don't intend playing in that space. Our goal is to play in the complex generic space in the US as compared to the commodity generics. So I think where cost is less relevant, right, to be competitive in that. So that's broadly the roadmap, right, as to how we are moving forward. Um, Innovation for us will clearly start playing out from F27 and beyond, right, where we are hoping some of our, between Iconos and Glenmark, some of these molecules start coming to market, right, in these areas of oncology and immunology. So between now and F27, it's all going to be our branded business, our branded growth, and complex generics, which will drive our growth and our future.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I think very, but just the point which I said about the, the tangible benefits, for Glenmark Pharma, if you could at least point out 2, 3, which we can at least immediately say, which will make a difference.
I think the most tangible benefit is obviously we'll pay down the debt and it will be a net cash positive company going forward, right? That's a big one. Secondly, uh, it helps us be much more focused on building our branded business and attempting to move up the value chain, and it gives us enough firepower for the future, right? To drive our growth journey going forward. So I think going forward, if you look at Glenmark, our primary focus is going to be in 3 areas. One is high growth, second is return on capital employed, right? And the third is net cash positive, right? These are the 3 drivers, right, to how our growth model is going to look like.
Okay, so lots to talk about in future with you. Thank you so much for that. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for your question. The next question is from Anurag Joshi from ET Now.
Congratulations, Glenn. So let's divide my question into 3 parts. So, what was the real trigger for you to go in for this divestment? So you had synergies, there were synergies and between life sciences and pharma. So what was the trigger for you to, look for selling your stake? Secondly, did you have a preference for a strategic partner? I know for sure that there were private players also which were interested, but did you have a preference for a strategic investor like Nirma? And has the sale value, is that been according to your expectations? Thank you.
Well, as I said, the purpose of doing this transaction was purely because of divergent business models, right? I mean, GPL going in a different direction, right, which is more to move up the value chain and develop a branded business, and GLS going into scaling APIs and developing a CDMO model. So divergent business models is what drove us to look at this transaction, right? So that's the first point. The second point is, clearly, if you look at the way forward, right? Sorry, can you repeat that second and third part of your question?
Yeah, so my second question was that you have a preference for a strategic partner like Nirma. Was that natural? I mean, at the back of your mind, I'm sure you had evaluated other investors, but did you, in the back of your mind, did you prefer a strategic partner to eventually sell the company to a strategic partner? And a third, go ahead.
Well, I think, look, a strategic partner is always preferable, right? Because they bring a lot of stability, they bring a lot of growth. Their outlook is more to grow the business as opposed to squeeze out costs, right? And it's much more longer term, right? So strategic partners are always preferable. They take a long-term view on the business. They are growth oriented. They are employee oriented. So always preferable compared to private equity, right? I mean, that's just our view. So from that perspective, Nirma was a perfect fit, right, for this transaction. Right. Yeah. You want to ask your third question?
I think, yeah, it's done. Thank you, Anurag. So let's move on to our next question, which is from Anju Gangurde from Script. What do you, Anju, please?
Yeah. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening.
Sir, just a couple of questions. So you mentioned that 15%, roughly 15% of the portfolio sources APIs from Glenmark Pharma's portfolio is sourced from GLS, the API part. Is the profitability of that component very different from what you source from, say, other API manufacturers? And if you can clarify, that means 85% is sourced from Indian players, or bulk of it comes from China? That's the first question.
So Anju, let me take it one at a time, right? So I think to answer your first question, look, the profitability is not different, right? It's this. Look, these are both companies are being run at arm's length. Okay, so whatever price GLS gives Glenmark Pharma is no different from what they are selling to the other customers, okay, to their other customers. So there is no differential pricing that Glenmark Pharma derives from GLS. They are two independent, publicly listed companies, right? The second point is regarding your question on China. I don't think so. 85%, the balance 85% comes from a wide variety of companies. I would say the bulk still being from India, but also we source a lot from Europe. We source a lot from a little bit from China, right? I don't think there's too much of finished API that we source from China. It's mainly from other Indian players. There are a number of quality API players, and of course some European players.
Okay. The next bit is, so does GLS, has GLS actually participated in the PLI scheme in any way, or has it garnered any funds from there?
Glenmark Pharma has got a big stake in the PLI scheme.
Okay. And just the just the final one. There's a bit on the non-compete clause. So that essentially has to do with the API business, or are there any other buckets of business that are co-opted in that in some way?
So I think the non-compete is specific for the products which we source from GLS, and where we cannot obviously get into those APIs for that period, but we are allowed to source from another source also. And likewise, it's vice versa, right? It both non-compete on the new acquirer also, right? Nirma will also you have to make sure that they don't get into those formulations.
Okay. Okay. So you mean Nirma can also not get into the certain formulation areas that Glenmark is in, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And just quickly, if I can clarify, would you be able to, just generally tell us how many suitors were actually in the fray for this business?
Anju, I rather
or very
not,
broadly,
I rather
we
not comment on any of that.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Anju. So the next question is from Ekta Batra from CNBC TV 18. Ekta, could you please unmute yourself before asking the question? Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. Congratulations on the deal. Just a quick question. So you are going to be completely net debt free. If you could just surprise us of what the gross debt is on the books, and hence what the payment would be when it comes to the entire gross debt. And what would you do with the remaining cash? How much cash on books would remain with the company post payment of gross debt?
So I think the gross debt is around 4,600, 4,500, 4,600 crores in that ballpark, right? And as I said, net of the tax, we will end up getting about 5,000 crores, right? That's what we anticipate. So, clearly, from the transaction itself, right, we will be net cash positive, right, at the close of the transaction.
Okay. So I'm sorry, just to reiterate that figure, net tax and post tax as well as payment of gross debt, you'll get what, 500 crores on your books? Is that what you said?
5,000 is the total proceeds, right? From the
Yeah. Okay, got it.
gross debt is about 4546 in that ballpark.
Okay. Any plans to reward shareholders and utilization of that cash in any way?
So I think right now, it's a board decision, Ekta. We will debate it at the board level and see uh, what is to be done in terms of further rewards to the shareholders. I can't comment on that, what happens on that aspect.
Okay. What would the plan be in terms of further investments in terms of the R&D profile or the R&D assets that you have?
So right now, if you look at the roadmap, right, for R&D, right, we spend about 8.5% on R&D this year. We brought it down quite significantly over the years. My guess is next year that number could come down to 7 to 8%, closer to 7.5% on total R&D spends. So effectively, what we're doing is we are coming closer to the peer group in terms of R&D spends, and our margins will continue to escalate because of lower R&D spends going forward.
Okay. Just two more questions with regards to any kind of divestment, further divestment in terms of assets. Anything else on the cards, or say out licensing deals, any kind of further divestment of any tail end brands that you have in India?
So out licensing deals we are actively pursuing it, and hopefully we should hear something in the near future on the out licensing side. But we are done with any further divestments for the time being, right? Definitely till we close this transaction, but even beyond that, right? We don't anticipate any further divestments.
Okay, no further divestments. Would this change your guidance in any way for FY24? Because now you don't have the API business to account for, one, and two, I'm assuming your finance costs are going to go down by at least Q4 of this fiscal, and hence maybe that would aid profitability. So if you could give us a sense in terms of the guidance for Glenmark.
I don't think so. It all depends on when we will get to close this transaction, right? I mean, our guess is if this happens in Q4, right, we won't change any of our guidance for this year, right? It all depends on how long it takes us to close the transaction. But clearly, the benefits will definitely flow into FY25, right, in a big way.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And again, congratulations.
Thank you, Ekta. So the next participant is Jyoti Datta from Hindu Business Line. Yes, please. Jyoti.
Yeah, good evening, Glenn. Can you hear me? Okay, so just two short questions. You did mention that Glenmark Pharma and Life Sciences were having divergent pathways, but what could you tell us about the timing of this transaction now? Because you're just 2 years or so into the listing of Life Sciences. That's one. And second is, what can you tell us about your partner of choice to sell? Because they're not traditional pharma companies in that sense.
So I think from a timing perspective, Jyoti, this is as good a time as any other, right? Because we're seeing that the synergies between the two businesses are rapidly disappearing, right? Between the two businesses. So, from a timing perspective, now is as good a time as anything else, right? Or any other time. With regards to your second question, which is, Jyoti, can you just repeat that second question again for me?
Yes, then you have a partner who's not a traditional pharmaceutical partner in that sense.
So I think, look, Nirma has started making investments in the pharma industry. They have a small injectable company that they recently bought. They bought an ophthalmic company. This is a big play into pharma, right, for Nirma. But I think as a group, they've been super successful in multiple different businesses. So they're a large conglomerate. And I'm pretty sure they are, they will use this as a platform to continue to expand into the pharma industry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti. So the next one is from Rishika Sadam from the Reuters. Over to you, Rishika.
Hi, Glenn. Congratulations. Just wanted to clarify something that you'd said at the beginning of the call that Nirma would make a mandatory open offer of 17.5% stake at 631 rupees per share. Is that correct?
17.15% stake at
Right.
631.
Right. Just two more questions. Has Nirma used their healthcare subsidiary, AccuLife Healthcare, as the possible vehicle for the acquisition?
No, this is coming from Nirma Limited.
All right. This is coming from Nirma. And the last question I've had, when you mentioned that the focus of Glenmark Pharma, now that in FY24 they're looking at net cash positive and you do have additional amount on the books, the focus is to look at the branded business, growing branded business. Apart from what you already have, are there any concrete plans or anything new that the company is doing? I mean, how would you want to grow this branded business that you already have a dominant share in?
So I think, look, Glenmark, given our global franchise, right, that we run, we have, we've built very strong franchise in India, which we are hoping to grow, accelerate growth through new product introductions. We're also planning to further expand our portfolio in Europe, in Latin America, and some of these geographies, the rest of the world markets, which are growing very fast for us, right? So I think increasingly you will see a lot of moves which will further expand our branded or specialty business going forward.
Right. A quick follow-up question. When you said new product introductions, any particular disease areas that we're looking at or any new areas?
So I think we continue to focus on dermatology, respiratory, and oncology, right? These are the three disease areas you will see a number of new product introductions as we go forward.
Would this be in this current year or when will these new product introductions be?
I think you'll see some of it pretty quickly as we go forward.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishika. The next question is from Isha Trivedi from ET Prime. Over to you, Isha. Isha,
Hi.
you would, yeah. Yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so my question is basically considering that the debt overhang has now kind of been removed and we will be cash positive. But do you think at an operating level in the Glenmark Pharma business itself, how is the balance sheet been like in terms of cash flow? Is there some drag still going on because of the US business, or has it been improving in the last 2-3 years?
So Isha, now Glenmark Pharma will be almost a 14,000 crore business, right? Which is a sizable business when you think about it, right?
Hmm.
We generate free cash, right? Out of all our businesses that we operate now, right? So, with the further enhancements that we are making by reduced R&D spends, by the Rialtris helping in terms of the improving our margins, by Europe and Latin America providing greater operating leverage, right? You see further improvement in the overall margin of the business and of course the cash generation of it.
Right. And it will actually be driven more from the top line growth rather than the cost measures or stuff like that.
That's correct. Except for R&D, of course, there may be some optimization.
Correct. And so when you said because the focus is now on the branded markets, have you kind of, is the pipeline now for US kind of much smaller or thinner than what it used to be, or it was planned earlier, like few years back?
Well, I think we still continue with similar number of filings in the US market, right? So we still file 10 to 15 products every year. But I think the quality of the products has, we've improved significantly to look at much more complex type products, particularly in the area of respiratory, some derm products, injectables. So these are areas which we are heavily focused on.
Okay. And sir, lastly, actually, the entire, because Glenmark Life Sciences would also be a part of Glenmark in the office. I mean, will they be all shifting in the number of employees and everything, or is it?
Glenmark Life Sciences has a separate office, Isha. They run independently.
Oh,
They're not in the Glenmark house.
okay, okay, right, fine. No, thanks so much, and all the best.
Thank you, Isha. So now we have, I think, some repeat questions. First one will be from Vishwanath Pilla from Economic Times. What do you, Vishwanath?
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. One more this thing. I mean, like if we compare to the listing price of the GLS, the sale price has been little low. Like, how do you, is that I mean, like, how do you see that? And second thing is that will the GLS management will remain post the deal, or like is there any arrangement of continuing with the current management of GLS?
So regarding the the listing price, right, and the current price, right, at which we are doing this transaction, there are 2 points you want to keep in mind, right? I mean, GLS we believe has been trading at a discount primarily because of there is a holdco discount which has been applied, okay, between Glenmark Pharma and Glenmark Life Sciences. The minute now that Nirma takes over, right, that holding company discount will disappear, right? And we think there's a possibility for investors to get some upside. The second point you want to keep in mind is that the fact that Nirma is buying such a large stake, right, at these valuations, I'm sure they see a lot of potential, right, in Glenmark Life Sciences in terms of the return potential, right, as they go forward, right, with this business. So clearly, I think the minority shareholders will definitely benefit, right, over a period of time. It's been only 2 years since listing, so definitely there is a lot of upside to be gained from the current levels. Regarding GLS management stays intact. They will continue to run the business, and obviously the oversight now will shift to Nirma as once we close the transaction.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Vishwanath. We have another question from Lishamba Rajkumar. Again, yes, please.
Oh no, it's already been asked. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So the next one is from Nupur from Z Business. What do you, Nupur?
हाय सर, मुझे सिर्फ कंफर्म करना था निर्मा की तरफ से जो ओपन ऑफर आएगा वो 630 रुपीस पर शेयर और 17.15% स्टेक के लिए होने वाला है.
631 rupees.
ओके सर. और सर मेरा सेकंड क्वेश्चन, लास्ट क्वेश्चन ये है सर, यूएस में अब जो आप प्रोडक्ट लॉन्चेस और करने वाले उसकी पाइपलाइन कैसी है और आने वाले 2 क्वार्टर्स में एनी बिग प्रोडक्ट दैट इज कमिंग इन प्लेस?
US generics में हमारा प्राइमरी फोकस रेस्पिरेटरी मेडिसिन, डर्मेटोलॉजी, इंजेक्टेबल्स में है और एवरी क्वार्टर 3-4 प्रोडक्ट लॉन्चेस आएंगे. उनका काफी पोटेंशियल होगा.
ओके सर, थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you. So the last question is from Mr. E. Kumar Sharma from Financial Express. Oh, we have another as well. Sure. Over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Just one clarification actually. You mentioned this earlier, Glenn, but just so that you get this right, when should we say there will be free cash flow from Glenmark Pharma operations, if we were to put a date or time?
I think as soon as we close the transaction, right, Kumar, on closing we will be net cash positive, right, after we receive the proceeds from this.
That's all. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last one is from Rupali Mukherjee from the Times of India.
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. How are you? Just sorry, just joined in a little late. Didn't know about this. since it was last minute. Just wanted to know, could you just share some details about the deal and what would you do with the proceeds from this, and the sales multiple as well?
Sure. So Rupali, so we've entered a deal with Nirma to an agreement with Nirma where we are divesting a majority stake in Glenmark Life Sciences, right? 75%.
Yes.
For the total valuation of the company was 7,531 crores, and we will receive 5,651 crores.
Yes, I got that. Yeah.
So that's the broad contours of the deal. I mean, net of tax, we think we'll end up getting about 5,000 crores from the transaction, which obviously the proceeds will go towards repayment of the debt.
Right.
Glenmark Pharma net cash positive, right? As soon as we close the transaction, right? Obviously, closing will take some time because we have to still go through the typical regulatory approvals that are required for closing. But post closing, we will end up being net cash positive. In terms of sales multiple, our estimates are the deal is at an EV/EBITDA multiple of about around 11 times, I would guess, somewhere close to 11 times.
Okay. And anything in particular which went in favor of Nirma? You were talking to a lot of PE guys as well.
Well, as I said,
I mean, besides the price, of course. Yeah.
As I said, see, strategic investors bring a very different view, right? One is they are much more longer term. Two is they are, growth oriented. They're ready to invest in growing the business, expanding the business. And three is they are much more employee friendly, right? As compared to the PE group. So all these three put together, right? Having a strategic investor look at this business made more sense to us than a PE player.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rupali.
Thank you, Rupali. And thank you, Mr. Saldanha, for your insightful remarks. I think the Q&A session, the questions are over. So if any of our guests from the media still have any unanswered questions or require any further information, we request you to reach out to us on our contacts, which have been shared in the invite. You can also reach out to me anytime. So on behalf of Glenmark Pharmaceuticals Limited, we would like to express our gratitude to you all for joining us today. Your presence and engagement is highly appreciated. With that, we conclude our press briefing. And thank you once again for your time and interest in this announcement. And you may now exit the webinar. Thank